You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
You're tapped in, so let's get right to it. So there are conflicting issues or statements coming out about what's really taking place in the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and the United States Navy. Iran has said that they have indeed fired 2 missiles at the U.S. Navy frigate. However, CENTCOM says that no missiles hit the U.S. frigate, naval vessel, but they did not deny or confirm whether or not those missiles were fired at the Navy frigate. So a lot of us are taking it that, okay, Iran probably did shoot the missiles. Any more than that, it hasn't come out yet. And so this is something we're looking forward to seeing in the news feed, whether or not this attack with those 2 missiles actually took place. And if they did, what will be the outcome of that? What will Donald Trump or the Trump administration decide to do in retaliation of just merely firing these missiles at the U.S. Navy frigate? That remains to be seen. But when something comes in the feed relating to this, we'll be sure to let you guys know exactly what it is. Until then, there are conflicting reports coming out of the Strait of Hormuz regarding an engagement, let's say a military engagement between the IRGC and the U.S. Navy, while the Iranian state media claims a successful strike against the Navy frigate ship. The United States Central Command, CENTCOM, has officially denied that any ship was hit. But again, here's this report. It's out there. CENTCOM is saying our ship wasn't hit, but they are not acknowledging whether or not the missiles were fired. And if that's the case, then this is our question. What will be the reaction of the United States military in terms of the firing of these 2 missiles at that Navy frigate? Will the U.S. retaliate? Will they have a response for that? Now, the reason for, as we understand it, the firing of the 2 missiles at the U.S. Navy frigate was because they did not heed commands to not enter the strait. After so-called firing of these missiles upon the U.S. Navy frigate, it's our understanding that the ship turned around and left out of the strait. It did not stay. The reports from Iran, anyway, Iranian state affiliated outlets, including Fars News Agency and Tasnim, reported earlier that the RRGC did fire upon a U.S. Navy frigate near the port of Jask. All right, they allege that the vessel ignored warnings while attempting to enter the Strait of Hormuz. The impact of this, Iranian sources claim that the ship was hit by 2 missiles, causing it to change direction and leave the area. And again, CENTCOM is saying, hey, our ship was not hit. Now, this is what could be called the fog of war. No one really knows what's going on. And in terms of what's coming out of the area, whether it be Iranian news or United States or the U.S. Navy, giving reports, they seem to be conflicting, regardless who tells the story. So again, this is news we're waiting to really get to the bottom of. It's a fact that missiles were fired. It's not a fact. It's not conclusive as to whether or not those missiles hit the U.S. frigate. I have read claims that the U.S. fired interceptors and shot down, fired shots at the U.S. frigate. Again, there's no clarification of that. But I got something that's going to give us a little clarification or validation anyway, will help us to verify in our own way or right what we think took place. I have this clip. I'm going to drop this clip for you guys because, again, I think most of the time when we do that, it's a little more telling. I think it puts a little more on the plate for you guys to, absorb or to think over. So this is why we add clips from time to time. Again, the claim is that they alleged that the vessel ignored warning shots in its attempt to enter the Strait of Hormuz. And again, we don't know what the outcome of this will be. Again, whether or not Donald Trump will retaliate, and if so, how would that take place, or what would that look like, that retaliation? All right. The US's response again, Sitcom did issue a statement saying it issued a direct denial, actually, on the social media and through official channels shortly after these reports had surfaced. The denial, Sitcom stated, no U.S. Navy ships have been struck. In bold letters is how they put that. The context, though, is that the U.S. military noted that its forces were currently supporting Project Freedom. Now, this is supposedly some type of humanitarian effort by the U.S. government through the U.S. Navy to escort ships in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. To be exact, is to kind of clear up that bottleneck there. All those ships that have been stranded in the waters for so long, and sailors aboard these ships not having, a way off of these vessels onto dry land, or back, headed back to where they need to be. So the United States has taken it upon itself to enact this movement, if you will, supporting those stranded ships, called Project Freedom, and it's supposed to be an operation intended to restore freedom and freedom of navigation for commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, while simultaneously enforcing a naval blockade on Iranian ships. All right. That would be a hard task, I think. And like most of what we've seen take place up to this point, a couple of months into this war, United States still does not seem to have a strategy in place to help them not only really actually have a victory with this issue or in this conflict, but to have a way out, and off ramp. So this is an issue that the United States has to face, and it seems that because they're going about this without a strategy, they're finding themselves deeper and deeper into waters that are supposedly off limit to the U.S. military. We'll see how that turns out. But yeah, um, the operational status again, Sitcom said that they confirmed that two U.S. flag merchant ships did successfully transit the strait today under Navy protection without incident. And again, I wonder how that worked. Did they actually go into the strait? Did they actually go into the strait? I don't know. I don't know. So we have no way of verifying what's the truth and what's propaganda. What's the truth and what's just a false narrative, fake news. We don't know. But anyway, the summary of it is, while it is confirmed that the IRGC, they claimed and did fire upon, not necessarily hitting a U.S. frigate, but they did fire. There's no independent or U.S. confirmation of a successful strike against that naval vessel. Historically, similar claims made by the IRGC, such as a reported strike on the USS Abraham Lincoln back in March, were later debunked by satellite imagery and official military records. But at this point, or at this hour, the U.S. maintains that all naval assets are accounted for and undamaged. Now, in terms of that statement made by, in terms of the USS Abraham Lincoln being fired upon or being hit, I don't know to what accuracy it could be stated that, yeah, that didn't happen in satellite imagery. I don't, it could be computer generated, whatever. I wouldn't trust that either, no more than I would trust Artemis 2 going up in space. And I don't know, because only thing we saw was computer generated stuff. Satellite pictures and stuff, all that type of stuff can be doctored, and I'm pretty sure everyone knows that. But that being said, let's get to this clip. I have a clip I want to bring this in and give you guys aboard what's being said in those waters, or what's being said about what's taking place in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Before we do, please like, share, follow, comment, and subscribe to Tapped, the Art of Political Discourse. We appreciate you guys' participation and your viewership with this channel. So thank you very much for that. All right, let's get to this clip, and let's make it make sense, okay? And this is courtesy of MS Now.
Political impact of all this is very clear on the president, as a number of people who disapprove of the way Trump is handling his job has.
And for a little context, it's going to start out, we're going to talk about Trump's, or it will be discussed in terms of Trump's disapproval ratings falling again. Now, all of this stuff leads up to, or it is being said, Trump is doing all these other things to try to distract the public from his failures that are actually occurring, not just in Iran, but all over the world. He's having issues governing and interacting with other countries. This thing about the what does he call it? The freedom is something, the Project Freedom, escorting ships through the street, creating more problems for himself than he is relieving them. This is what we tend to think, just distractions. You know, you kind of get himself further into this mess that he's not going to be able to get out of. And as a result, his race will continue to plummet. So that is. And we're just talking about, again, his approval rating plummeting.
It's climbed to the highest mark in his presidency. That's according to the latest Washington Post, ABC News
disapproval reaches new high.
62% say they disapprove of the way Trump has handled his job in the Oval Office.
That's a lot.
That's compared to 37% who approve. That's down 2 points from February.
And you have to think in terms of how Trump thinks. This is not a scratch on his ego. No, this is a huge bruise to his ego. 62% of the American people does not approve of his job. All right. Yeah, he's not happy.
Meanwhile, 65% disapprove of the way Trump is handling the overall economy, which is down 7 points from 3 months ago. That's a significant drop.
Wow.
More than 70% of those polled disapprove of how the president is handling inflation and the rising cost of living. And Trump's ratings on other issues also remain low, with more than 60% disapproving of his handling of the war in Iran, relations with American U.S. allies, and also taxes.
So President Trump's handling of issues, situation in Iran, disapproves 66%. We just saw another one previous to that was 65, or was it 62? But in any respect, that's even higher. All right. 33% approved. That's a third of the country, or a third of those polled. Relationships with U.S. allies, 65% disapprove. And again, we know that he's taking swipes at NATO and the EU, Western countries. He's supposed to be moving troops out of Germany and away from the NATO pact. Well, that remains to be seen in terms of how he's going to go about doing that, or whether or not he actually does that. And if he does it with one country, you have to think that other NATO countries are going to feel slighted as a result of that. And they may just take the horse's reins and kick out U.S. troops themselves and not wait for Donald Trump to remove them from their countries. Again, his taxes, his handling of tax issues, 61% disapprove, with 38% approving. Immigration, 59% disapprove, 40 approve. U.S.-Mexican border, 54% disapprove, and 45% approve. These are not good stats.
And amid rising gas,
these are not great stats, or even good stats, for the so-called greatest president in American history.
Prices now at a national average of $4.45.
Look at this. And we're in California, and gas is almost at $6 a gallon. All right. Currently, they're saying it's at $4.46. I guess they averaged it out, which is said national average. Okay. Yesterday was $4.40, went up a penny since yesterday. A week ago, it went up, 34 cents. And it just continues to go up. And this is all Donald Trump's doing, and or those who thought he would be the best person for the seat. I can imagine them kicking themselves in the butt.
Cents a gallon. Members of the Trump administration yesterday claimed that tax refunds are helping Americans deal with the spike in fuel costs.
Bank of America came out with a report this week that says the gas price spike has cost consumers $19 billion. Mm-hmm. They say gas prices have canceled out nearly half of the increase in expected tax refunds. Goldman Sachs concurs, saying the drag will offset the benefits from that tax bill the White House had championed. Do you agree with that analysis?
Well, do not only agree with that analysis, do anyone agree that they received the tax cut? Because I'm pretty sure everybody I know, most of the people I know, never received one. So we'll continue to look for it in the mail.
No, that analysis is incorrect. Like, think about it this way: 3 million people have filed taxes already, and the average tax refund is $3,600. 53 million people have benefited from no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security.
Yes, we have seen an increase in pricing, but if you look at what the president has done for consumers, one big, beautiful bill, he wanted to make sure that Americans got a big tax refund this tax season. Not sure if that was in your poll. I didn't get a chance to look at it before I came on. But the Americans were happy with how much they got back, because he said, listen, we're not going to tax tips. We're not going to tax Social Security.
Whether those refunds have come through or not, polling suggests Americans deeply unhappy with the president's handling of the economy. And Congressman, that's in part because of what we've seen in the war. This is a conflict that the president never really sold to the American people. It has lasted far longer than those in the administration expected. And right now, because the Strait of Hormuz has been effectively shut, we're seeing gas prices only continuing to go up.
Yeah, keep in mind, as you mentioned, on day 2, he declared victory already.
Yeah.
Remember, 2 days prior to launching this war, he spent no effort to sell this to the American people. I think he thought it would be very quick. And then you take all this compacting time that the strait has been closed, and you imagine when it reopens, a tanker doesn't go very fast, right? They travel at the speed of a bicycle. So if you think about it, the second the strait reopens, when it does, however long it takes a bicycle to get from one of those ports to whatever port of entry it gets to, you still have then that accordion amount of effect of where people are running out of gas and prices are spiking, on top of all the things like plastics and everything else. And the greatest self-own in this, or self-goal, I told it, it's actually called by my soccer fan friends. But the greatest self-goal here is the lack of the information war. Iran attacks every day Trump very effectively with like the Lego memes. They used an Uno meme this time. And the Trump administration reacts not by attacking Iran, but they react by attacking Democrats. Like, they're sitting here putting out the information front of dividing Americans further while Iran is doing it. And then they're apoplectic that their numbers are low. Well, their numbers are low because they make no effort to sell this to the American people. And on top of that, there is no plan to get out of the situation we're in now. We're in the worst of both worlds. Iran is sitting with a nuclear stockpile that supposedly we wanted to eliminate. The strait is closed. Iran now has some power, in essence, the power of a nuclear weapon, because it's shown its ability to close the strait. And there is no plan to get out of this besides a blockade, which, by the way, is making up for the fact that we had raised sanctions on Iranian oil early on in this fight. So this is why Americans are like, this makes no sense.
Lots of soccer talk on Morning Joe this morning. Plenty of own goals. Elise, in the Congress makes a great point that even if the Strait of Hormuz were to magically open, the prices would stay high for a while. It's going to take quite some time for them to recover. And this morning we're getting all kinds of conflicting reports of what's happening there. Al Jazeera has quoted witnesses saying they saw a U.S. ship be hit. U.S. CENTCOM has denied that. Now the U.S., per the AP, is suggesting that a couple of U.S. flagged merchant ships have been able to get through the strait. Iran's denying that. So we're not sure what exactly has happened today in that key waterway, but we are sure that it's not going to resolve itself anytime soon.
Well, it would really help if we could have a modicum of trust that the administration is being forthright in the.
And I made that statement a little while ago. It is a matter of trust, and it's just not with the American people. The American people does not trust the Trump administration, or let's just be quite honest. Most of the politicians in Congress or the Senate, most of our politicians are corrupt, as as more than or as much as Donald Trump and his administration. We're talking about corruptness. It's just rife. The political arena over there in Washington, D.C. is rife with corruption. So there is a trust issue, but not just with the American people. Also, the trust issue goes to those allies who, before Trump, trusted the American government, and its policies, its program, its aid, whatever. They no longer trust them. NATO does not trust America, or Donald Trump. The EU doesn't trust him. Look what he just did to Zelensky of Ukraine. No one trusts him. Iran said, wait a minute, we can't even negotiate faithfully because you guys have no integrity. You can't be trusted. You'll say one thing and stab us in the back while, do another stabbing us in the back. So yeah, trust is an issue. And the crazy thing about it is not trusting the Trump administration comes from every sector, all around the world. No one trusts the United States. That's bad.
Information that they are putting forward to the public, to the press, but we have seen just such an information silo, and Pete Hegseth testifying in front of Congress and spewing absolute nonsense and attacking the press. And I think where I would go to you is, at this stage in the game, this Project Freedom that Donald Trump implemented as of yesterday, apparently it's more like a hotline where you can call and say, hey, I got a problem, looks a little iffy here, am I good to go through the strait? So it isn't really actually going to do that much. If I'm an insurer, I'm not going to say that Project Freedom is making me feel totally assured that the ship is going to be okay. I mean, how is this actually going to change anything, even though obviously freedom of movement needs to be restored in the strait?
Well, what it's going to change is reset. I think this is in the mind of the administration to reset the 60-day clock on the war powers, because now it's a different operation, right? The first operation is closed down. Here's a new thing we're doing, freedom of navigation. I wonder if that's their reasoning behind it. And then when the president put that message out yesterday, I saw it and I thought, okay, we're going to start escorting tankers through the strait. Good, there's danger to it, but that's probably what we need to do. And then it was very quickly clarified, no, we're just going to tell people where to go. Why would you even call that an operation? That's just like a DOD thing you do. I think they're in a real pickle here. And ultimately, the president has to make a decision to, I guess, commence the attack probably and try to reopen the strait, or live with this, which is really the worst case scenario. It's almost better if we just leave at this point, even though it's going to be, bad in the long run, clearly. I mean, we are leaving my son, Christian, who's 4 years old, we are leaving him a country in a much worse strategic position than when Donald Trump took over. We never had to worry about freedom of navigation of the strait. Now we do. The Iranian regime, though decimated and hurt, is still in power. And I will say to those people that say, well, we have reduced the number of ballistic missiles of Iran. That was the goal. Great. We've reduced the number of missiles in the United States as well. And secondarily, Iran buys ballistic missiles to keep its regime in power, and it has kept its regime in power. So where's the victory?
That's right. Where's the victory? There isn't one. Again, as we stated here at TAP, that what the Trump administration is actually doing is digging them or finding themselves in deeper waters that they'll not be able to navigate out of no time soon. So this is actually a strike against the Trump administration or regime in terms of them not having a strategy that deals with this issue that they created, not Iran. Again, so you can have all the excuses you like about what Iran had and did not have. Fact of the matter, not just the world governments, but also the intelligence services said Iran was not making a nuclear weapon. So the United States finds itself in this position because Donald Trump wanted to listen to Benjamin Netanyahu, who also have issues he need to deflect or distract his people from, because he could very well be going to prison as well in Israel, But that is, we tend to think that this thing is going to get worse before it gets better. And because Trump has found himself in waters he can't navigate from or out of, he's going to escalate this situation, and it's not going to bode well for anyone. All right. So keep that in mind. Let us know what you think about this piece. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit us up. Let us know whether you are for or against, whether you agree or not. In terms of this content, we say that Donald Trump is steering this country down the wrong canal. We're on the wrong strait. We're in the wrong strait. And I tell you, it's going to be a while before this country is actually selling smoothly again. All right. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Okay.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.